I'm Ryan,
And I'm Nick.
and you're listening to Going Offsides, presented by the Lacrosse Collective on the Lacrosse All-Stars Podcast Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to episode 7 of the Going Offsides podcast presented by the Lacrosse Collective and distributed on the Lax All-Stars Network. Today, Ryan and I are going to sit down and talk about the MLL, how nice it's been to have lacrosse back, and we're even going to have our best MLL, our personal picks for our favorite MLL team ever. So with that being said, Ryan, what do you think about the game so far?
Well, can I just get started off by saying how fantastic it is to have actual live lacrosse back that we can watch on TV? I mean, it's like a lacrosse player's dream right now. The next month between the MLL and the PLL, we're gonna have lacrosse on TV every single day. So it's been really nice. It's somewhat of a return to normalcy, and it's been great. Games have been great. We're just coming off of that really great game last night between the Bayhawks and the Outlaws. So there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, it's going to be awesome when we can kind of go through our all-MLL team. So it's going to be a great episode. It's going to be awesome, and let's just keep it rolling, man. Nick, what are your thoughts so far on the start of the season? You're the man with the crystal ball. It seems like you can't lose with your pick'ems.
Yeah, I'm still upset I lost that game, the Lizards, or what was it? I lost the Hammerheads Lizards game. Oh,
I could have told you that was going to happen.
I don't know. You predicted Kraus actually showing up and putting a ball in the back of the net.
I sure did. I more so. I predicted the Lizards, faltering down the stretch, which seems to be their MO this entire week of lacrosse.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it didn't look like they really wanted to be there anymore. But with Connecticut, Scanone's been the story of the week. I mean, he might be eligible to win MVP if they do an MVP for this week, because he is just playing lights out. I mean, the Lizards actually played decent offense, but they couldn't get the ball past that guy. So he's been ridiculous. I mean, there's certainly levels to this so far. Denver and Chesapeake are clearly far and away tier 1. Boston and Connecticut, I think Boston is definitely, it's borderline tier 1. I mean, they've these glimpses of greatness, but they're stuck in tier 2 with Connecticut. And then Philly and New York are, if you look at the records, they're tier 3. But honestly, I think by the end of all this, Philly has shown that they're clearly better than Connecticut. But having played, I think they've already played Denver and Chesapeake. So, they haven't had a chance to pick up a nice win by playing the Lizards. So I think once that happens, we'll get to see Philly finally put it all together. I mean, they have Alex Woodall. They've got some really talented Canadian players on offense. So it's just a matter of time before things click for them and they move up into tier 2 with Boston. But I think it's just crazy, the disparity just in 6 teams. You can see the depth of goalies in the league is incredible. Every team has a great goalie. And I hate to say this, but like the pole depth isn't as deep as it needs to be to have an elite product.
Yeah, well, I think you're correct on that standpoint. It's just, and also too, this league is built for run and gun. So, I mean, goalies are going to see a ton of shots. Like defenses, I mean, it's amazing to see what Ken Clausen's doing with that Denver defense, because it looks like they haven't skipped a beat from last year. But let's be honest, this isn't a defensive league. I mean, it's geared for the offense. So, like you said, I mean, if you have a really good goalie and you have a great face-off guy, you're going to be in it. I mean, like we talked about yesterday when we were texting back and forth. I mean, it was really interesting to see that last night. It was still a 1-goal game between the Bayhawks and Outlaws, even though the Outlaws just completely dominated on faceoffs. I mean, Adler went 22 out of 25, but I think the key for that is that Bachlet, they rested him. I think he left the previous game before with cramps and they rested him a little bit. And then he came out and he looked fresh last night. So I think that's going to be a big key for those two teams going forward. I mean, now that, the Wednesday games are over, we're into Thursday. If those two teams can, manage their rosters well, which I think they will, there's some pedigree there. They're going to have a good chance of meeting each other, in the finals. But if they don't, then that's where, a team like a Boston or a Philly can come in and sneak in. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, now that we're getting further into the week, we're going to see, the major depth issues that teams have, and where some teams can possibly steal a win.
Yeah, and now that I'm looking at the stats from last night's game, and just so everyone knows, we're recording this on a Thursday, so if you're wondering what tonight and yesterday and all that stuff means, we're on Thursday right now. But Denver had 29 shots on goal. They outshot Chesapeake. They had obviously more goals, more ground balls, 22 out of 28 on faceoffs. But the real big kicker here is that they had 20 turnovers compared to 14 by Chesapeake. That's a big deal, especially in today's game. And then the saves. They had only 7 saves compared to 16. So a 9 save differential and a 6 turnover differential is exactly what Chesapeake needed to stay in that game, despite the huge disparity on faceoffs.
Yeah, it's just these two teams are so fun to watch. I really do hope we get a chance to see them play again. And I hope that everybody watching gets a chance to see them play again, but play on ESPN too, where everybody can watch it, as opposed to kind of having to go through ESPN Plus to watch it. So, I think Phipps did a great job in cage. I know he went down a little bit last night and wasn't looking too hot towards the end. Hopefully he can get his legs back under him and make a push for the finals, because I think he's been playing as good as anybody. And I think what really has helped him is that, moving over and being a college coach at such a high level, like he's seeing the game so different for them. It's like having another coach on the field. It's like, a situation like with Denver, having John Grant Jr. on the field. You have a player coach, you have somebody playing, they're seeing the field and they're seeing what's going on. So I think from a defensive standpoint, that helps them out tremendously.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked to John Cohen about that, the GM at Denver, and he said, John has his role, but we're not going to see Grant Jr. as much on the field moving into the weekend. The plan was always to play him sparingly, and you can see that he's clearly hobbled by some kind of leg injury. And he's become, a real big initiator from X, trying to find an assist on cutters and stuff like that. And that's something he's incredible at. But the plan moving forward is just to basically use him as a man-up specialist and then have him be a player coach. I mean, I saw him fully suited up, helmet off, standing in the box, coaching his ass off. So I think that's what you're going to see from them. And then talking to Rex Road, he was saying that because I was impressed by how the Denver defense is, in my opinion, at a whole nother level compared to the rest of the league. I mean, the Chesapeake is good. Denver's defense is great. And losing Finn Sullivan, losing Eli Gobrecht, I was curious, losing Dylan Ward. I was curious how they were able to do that so quickly with only 2 days to really prepare. And he said that, a lot of those guys played at Rutgers together, which I actually didn't know off the top of my head. So, he's familiar with those guys. And then the addition of Rigney, Cohen said that Rigney's one of the best players they've ever brought in. And, they certainly hope that he can play in the future. But that's very unclear with his service commitment. But that's a big statement because Denver's been good for a long time. So for Rigney really to come in and be, a rookie and be one of the best players they've ever brought in on defense, I mean, it's no wonder. And then they've got, great D mids. They've got Charlie Hayes. I think definitely one of the most underappreciated players in the league, but definitely one of the best D middies in the league for sure. So it's not a surprise that they're still great on defense. I mean, if they already knew each other very well, and they've played together in the past, and then you add one of the best players you've ever added on D, it all makes sense.
Well, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I mean, having the having the continuity and having some of these guys played together, I think that's why, some of the smarter GMs and smarter coaches, they go for multiple players from the same college programs. I mean, that's why, I mean, it's kind of funny. Look at, I read something on Twitter the other day. They're talking about just how they said, Maryland lacrosse is the Alabama of Alabama football of the MLL, just because how many Terps are playing in the league in both leagues now, and how many Terps are playing together on so many different teams. I mean, you can say that, like you just said, the same thing for Rutgers. I think that gives them a leg up. I mean, especially when it comes to defense, having the understanding and knowing, who your partner is, where your partners are going to be, and having that, that time that they played together, it just, that helps a defense mesh and gel so much quicker. So, I mean, good for them. I mean, like you said, their defense is head and shoulders above everybody. And if they can keep up that level and intensity going into the weekend, they're going to be a really tough team to beat. I mean, it's like we talked about, there is definitely a top tier, a mid tier, and a bottom tier. You know, I grew up a Lizards fan, and I had season tickets for so many years, and to kind of see them play and listen, it's a unique setup the way they're doing this over the course of a week. But they've had a couple of games where they've kind of let it slip away. I thought coming out of that weather delay against the Outlaws the other night, they were going to be able to steal that. But, hey, guess what? Things go the other way. And then likewise, last night, I thought they were going to be able to steal another one as well. But, it just didn't work out for them. So,
yeah. And to piggyback what you're saying about continuity, it's a lot like, I know you're not a big video game guy.
No.
But in NHL.
Well, I am a big NHL guy.
Yeah. Well, the ultimate team, the whole strategy is you get these player cards, right? Mm-hmm. And the line has chemistry based on, do these guys play for the same national team? Are they from the same country? Are they from the same league? Are they from the same team? And based on those things, you have better chemistry. It's the same thing that we're seeing here. Did these guys play in college together? I talked to Kyle Jackson, and he said that 4 guys from the Cannons offense played in high school together.
Yeah.
At the Hill Academy. And he said, we're not running anything like very different than we ran in high school. So that all makes a huge difference.
Well, it's like, if you just take the video game aspect out of it, and you're talking about NHL, you look at the great pairs over the years, like Wayne Gretzky and Jari Kurri, that doesn't happen without that chemistry, without them playing together for so long. And then when some of those guys leave those teams and go somewhere else, and they have someone else distributing or doing something like that, their numbers significantly drop. So, I mean, it is that chemistry aspect of it is so important. So it's, for this situation, it's almost like you have to approach it like you would a summer league team and not a professional team.
Well, I mean, it's basically a summer tournament. Yeah. I mean, every player I talked to in the last 2 weeks, whether it be Nick Casello, Pat Harbison, Kyle Jackson, they all mentioned how they were excited because this is a lot of lacrosse at once, something they don't get to do as an adult very often. And a lot of these guys don't have time to play Placid or any of the other big summer tournaments. So it's fun for them because they get to play a lot of lacrosse at once. And there's not a lot of time to coach. There's not a lot of time to, Kyle was saying, we're not being overcoached. Like sometimes in college, coaches feel like they have to coach every day and make things overcomplicated because they have to fill that time, or else they feel like they're not doing enough. This week, it's not that. It's just little tweaks here and there, making sure that, the team's gelling, motivating the team, but they're definitely not being overcoached. So
I wonder how many of these guys actually, some of these coaches, reached out to a John Danowski or a Mike Pressler or even a Randy Mearns, some of those national team coaches that have had to coach in a situation like this where you're together for 10 days or whatever, short time in between games, short prep. What are you doing from a coaching standpoint? Because I know last World Games for Team USA, they spent so much more time on the actual chemistry and team bonding aspect of it rather than the lacrosse. Like, they knew that those guys could play, but it was just so much more focused on the chemistry aspect of it. So I wonder how many of those coaches actually might have reached out to some of those guys that have had success in an environment like this, where it's like a week to 10-day tournament where you have short turnaround, and then you have to prepare and make sure that these guys are doing the right things to their bodies to prepare for the next game. So who knows? It's interesting.
Yeah, you know who does know over in the PLL exactly how to do this because of his experience as a high school and a club coach and spending every summer grinding on summer tournaments? Beardsley. I mean, if he doesn't know how to take 2 weeks and be efficient with it and motivate and adjust and coach people, like, you know how club coaches are, they have to coach a system quickly. And not only is he, in a 2-week tournament, he's also new to the team. So he's got, if anyone's ready to come in and just flip the switch and have things going from day one, it's going to be someone like that with that kind of experience. Not to mention, just the lacrosse experience and IQ in general.
Yeah, I mean, he's a phenomenal coach. I mean, having interacted with him as a college coach, and obviously he did our gear for a couple of years, but even last year when we were at Shoreham, Christian Brothers was a Class C school, Shoreham was a Class C school, and we had some common opponents. So, there was some dialogue there. I mean, he's a phenomenal coach, and like, he's got his hands in so many different things. He's just, yes. I mean, he gives so much credibility to, as a player, because I mean, how can you not listen to a guy who was a four-time All-American, who could arguably still play, even him graduating in the 90s, and from a coaching standpoint, he's won a state championship. He's doing all these pro lacrosse talk. And I would say too, he's one of the best clinicians in the game. I mean, people are paying, money hand over fist to listen to him talk and teach defense. So, I think he's got a tremendous insight. And then also too, you look at Ben Rubior. I mean, obviously another guy who played at a high level, but also too, he's a high school coach. So he gets it. He understands the short turnaround and everything like that. And, these guys are both coaches that coach, Ben's in the MIAA, and then, Beardsley's coaching in New York State. So, I mean, they're playing tough opponents day in and day out. So I think that'll be interesting to see how they handle that PLL island.
Yeah. And from the looks of it, they have a little bit more time to get ready than the MLL guys did. But you know what? I'm just happy that we have lacrosse.
Ain't that the truth, my friend? Ain't that the truth?
So speaking of that,
and just to cut you off, it is the truth, because who knows when we're going to see lacrosse again, because with everything coming around, who knows if we're even going to have a competitive fall ball where we're going to be able to see teams play. So I hate to be the Debbie Downer on that, but people, you need to enjoy it while we have it, because who knows when we're going to see it again.
Yeah, we might not see lacrosse again until the NLL. So, which doesn't bother me one bit. I love the NLL, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't have high hopes for fall ball, or for people that don't really understand the sports side of things, the administration side of things. It's very unlikely that college sports happen anytime soon. Pro sports have the money; they have less regulations in terms of Title IX. Funding, they can put their players in a bubble and make things happen. So that's why pro sports are happening right now. But that doesn't happen at the college and high school level unless you have outrageous funding and you can hit every. The NCAA has a lot of red tape. So we're all hoping for the best for the spring, but pro sports is definitely the only clear path forward in terms of being able to watch live sports.
NCAA teams, if you're listening out there, which I hope you are, if you're able to do inter-squad scrimmages in the fall, live stream them so we can all watch them. I know you probably won't, because you're scared that the next coach is going to watch it and scout you and do all of that stuff. Listen, it's going to be fine. You're all great coaches. Live stream your games so that the people can see some lacrosse.
Yeah, call us. We'll help you. We'll do it for you. We don't care.
I'm in.
We just want to watch lacrosse.
Yeah, and make your live stream free. I'm talking to you, Limestone.
Shots. Absolute shots. But yeah, I have to agree with you on that. Not calling out Limestone in particular, but if you're a small school and you take the time to set up your live stream and then you charge $5.99 for it, who do you think is really, other than a handful of parents, is paying that? There are several games each summer or each spring that I would love to watch casually because I just want to watch as much lacrosse as possible. And I'm like, I'm not paying $6 for that product
Your
when I can go
login getting
watch. Yeah,
your login's getting passed around like my Netflix account.
honestly, you're missing way more people by putting up that small, tiny little paywall than you are from the benefit of having all those people watch is greater than the handful of people that pay your $5.99 or $4.99. So do us all a favor, unless you're getting tens of thousands of streams, take down the paywall.
It's not a knock on Limestone. I get it. I understand. They play a tough schedule and they play some really great games. I'd love to watch more of their games.
That's one of the few schools where I'd probably pay, honestly.
Yeah.
But if we're trying to grow the game, take down the paywall, get some more fans, get really, really good, and then put up your paywall like Limestone.
Yeah, it's a pandemic. Come on, give us a
help us out. Yeah, help us out. I'm not disrespecting your job. I'm just saying, give me a freaking break.
Yeah.
All right. Tonight's games. Why don't we pick tonight, tomorrow, and then make our predictions for the weekend? So tonight we have 4 p.m., just 6-7 hours from now. We've got Lizards Barrage. I think we're both in agreement. We're waiting for the Barrage to put it all together and officially knock the Lizards out of the tournament.
Yeah, I'm going with the Barrage.
Okay. Cannons Hammerheads. Hammerheads looked a little bit better yesterday. Kraus showed up, did some good work. Obviously one of the best goalies in the league, but Boston has all that power on offense. So who are you going with there?
I'm going to go with Boston. I think I'm a big, especially in this situation with like some of these guys being in their mid-20s, maybe a little bit older, that sort of thing, having time to recover and that sort of thing. I think I'm going to go with Boston. I mean, the Hammerheads had their game a little bit extended and all that other stuff. It's a tough game, all that other stuff. And coming off of that, I think it'll be a tough game. I think it could be a 2 to 3 goal game, but I'm going to go with Boston.
Okay. I can't disagree with you there. I'm a big Boston fan. And I think that they are the better team. I just hope that they play better. And hopefully with the day off, that happens. All right. And then Friday, we've got Hammerheads-Bayhawks. I mean, I don't think that there's any question there. Unless the Bayhawks stumble, they're gonna take care of business on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Outlaws-Cannons. I think that's the last real big test before we get into playoffs. I might go Cannons on this just because I think the Outlaws might, they've secured their playoff spot. They're 4-0. I know they want to be 5-0. I know that the intention is there for them to win. They're not saying like this is going to be easy. Let's just cruise into the playoffs. But I could see them, making a few strategic substitutions, playing different guys, getting different looks, trying out a few things. And I could see the Outlaws treating it as a very competitive, scrimmage where they're really trying to figure everything out before the weekend. One last chance to do that stuff.
I'm going Cannons. Going Cannons for those reasons that you just said. I think they'd be silly to not rest some people, especially going into the games where it's win or go home. And I think them going into this weekend, they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. So I think. I think they're gonna be smart going into Friday, but I'm gonna pick the Cannons.
Yeah, and I think if the Cannons win tonight against the Hammerheads, then they take a little bit of swagger into that game against the Outlaws, and it's kind of like a perfect storm, a perfect opportunity for the Cannons to win.
Absolutely.
So I think the Outlaws are better. I just think situationally the Cannons have a great chance there. And, the Outlaws have to be careful, too, because, like I said, they want to prepare for the weekend. They want to do all that stuff. However, you can't, you don't want to take too much away from the team and mess too many things up, because then going into a quick turnaround on Saturday, you don't want to be, struggling moving into your Saturday game. So it's a fine line as a coach to how to handle that. And you know what? Seaman's one of the best. So He'll figure it out.
There you go.
All right, we got a few minutes left here. So, all MLL teams. So what we did is we talked to each other and we said, why don't we pick, in the spirit of showing Major League Lacrosse love in their 20th season, why don't we pick a roster, not of the best players of all time? Certainly these guys are all very good, but our favorite players of all time. So that's what we did. The rules were simple. They can't be an active player in any league. Yeah, in any league. So for instance, if you wanted Greg Grunlian to be your face-off guy, that's fine. He's retired. But if you wanted Brody Merrill, sorry, he's still playing. Doesn't count. So that's kind of where we're going with that one. And then we try to pick teams that kind of fit, our personal personalities or have a theme. And then the last point is we have very different viewpoints on this. Ryan, having grown up being a Lizards fan, season ticket holder, he's also a few years older than me. He's seen MLL since when, Ryan? When was your first season?
So I was there from the beginning. I remember my father taking me and one of my best friends to when it was the showcase series out at Mitchell Field. So that was when you had the best of the best pals in red and navy, and then Mark Millen and the boys in the white and green uniforms. So and then the following year, that was when they were the Long Island Lizards, and that's when you had Casey Powell, Paul Gait, Gary Gait, Pat McCabe, Sal Locascio in the net. You had, basically the best of the best. it's been, and I'm dating myself and I was a young kid back then, but you're talking, that was 2000, 2001. Hofstra was elite. Nassau Community College was elite. Long Island lacrosse was just, from March to freaking August, you could watch high level lacrosse all the time. And it was just a special time.
Okay. And that's different for me growing up in the Midwest. MLL wasn't all over TV back then.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a thing. I started playing lacrosse in 4th grade, which out here is crazy. That doesn't happen too often. But, I was a senior in 2007 and I still maybe had seen an all-star game on TV. So my appreciation definitely is a few years after yours. That being said, 2 of the guys from my little Midwest high school did play in the league. One I think they both played for the Bayhawks because they went to UMBC in Towson. But other than that, we didn't have a big link. So I came into the league much later than Ryan. And, I did definitely have to do some homework because I knew some guys from the college game, and then I had to make sure that they played in the MLL. So
and then I just said some names to him that he has no idea. He's like, who the heck is that? But hey, I digress.
Exactly. So I'll go first because you definitely have a little bit more backstory to yours.
Yep.
So I have Sal Locascio in net. Ryan Mullet is one of my deep holes because he was the first draft pick ever, and he was one of the best defenders in college lacrosse. And then I got a couple of legends, Pat McCabe, Rick Beardsley, who, although short time in the MLL, still counts. At midfield, I have J.J. Albert, legend, Roy Colsey, and then a personal pick just because he's, from down the street, Jeff Sonke, 2-point man, definitely had a good career in the league, but not quite as legendary as some of the other guys on the list for sure. Face off, Jeff Snyder. And then my favorite player of all time on attack, other than John Grant Jr., who's not eligible because he decided to play this year, but Tom Marichek running my attack group with Mark Millen and Ryan Boyle. So I think that attack group gives you a little bit of everything, a little flavor. Definitely going to have some behind the back passes from Marichek. Boyle's going to be the brains, and Millen's going to be the do-it-all guy with a little bit of speed.
There you go. That's a pretty solid team right there.
Yeah, a little different. Definitely a lot of attitude on defense.
Yeah,
definitely some creativity on offense.
I don't think they have as much. I don't think they have as much attitude as my guys.
I bet. I could have gone easy and gone Gates and Powell's everywhere.
Yeah.
But
well, hey, some of us did. So my team, I got Doc in net, Brian Doherty. You can't. It's a toss up between him and Sal Locascio. I even toyed around with maybe a little with Trevor Tierney, but I went with Doc. I got Brian Spallina, Lee Zink, John Gagliardi, and Nicky Polanco on defense. One of those guys has to run the pole. I think between those guys, they've got a ton of championships, a ton of swagger, and I mean, I to this day, I still wouldn't want to get on the field next to Spallina and Polanco at the same time, and that did happen for a number of years. And at the midfield, I have J. Jalbert, which is obviously very similar to yours. I think he was a do-it-all midi. Unfortunately, his career was cut short due to some concussion issues, but I think for a time, he was the best midfielder in the world. I mean, he faced off, he played offense, he did everything. A guy nobody really talks about anymore, but I mean, he was as hard of a worker as anybody. Special player, played on multiple national teams, and I think he was one of the best, if not the best midfielder for a really long time. Matt Strebel. He was an absolute stud. And then, at midfield as well, I got Max Seabold. For me personally, there was a time too, I think, it was a toss up between him and Paul Rabel, and I would have picked Seabold. Just because of, his athleticism, and not that Paul Rabel isn't a great athlete. There was just something. He played a little bit meaner, Max Seabold, to me. And then at the face-off, Paul Cantabene, or Cantabine, however he wants to say it, and however everybody wants to say it. My attack line, I went with two Powells. I got Casey Powell and Mikey Powell. I can't not put Mikey Powell on the list. He's my favorite player of all time. And then to close it out, I got my my final pick is Kevin Lavelle, one of the best finishers of all time.
Yeah.
Now, one caveat to this is that I did pick my award, the Reg Dunlop Award, goes to Gary Gait. You can't have this. You can't talk about this game, and you can't talk about the MLL without bringing up Gary Gait. Phenomenal. He'd be my player coach. So that's my roster, and I'm sticking to it.
Perfect. And for the people under 30, 35 that don't know who Reg Dunlop is,
go watch Slapshot.
Okay, perfect. Not gonna lie, I never was a big Slapshot fan, but I did still get the reference. So
there you go.
All right, well, that's it for this week. Definitely check out the MLL if you haven't been. It's going to be on ESPN2 this weekend, and show them some love. It's a lot. There's some world-class players playing the MLL, and especially with the movement of some players over to the PLL, there's been a pipeline of box players, NLL players getting a chance to play field lacrosse, and it's exciting to watch. It's very exciting to watch.
I think the MLL won some people back this week already, and I think they're going to continue to do so going into the weekend.
Yeah, they gave a blueprint for all sports that it can be done. It can be done safely. So congrats to the MLL of getting out in front of it and being a leader in the sport again.
That's it, man.
All right. Take it easy, Ryan.
You got it, man. I'll talk to you in a bit.
That's it for another episode of Going Offsides, presented by the Lacrosse Collective. Please follow us at Lax Collective on Twitter, or go to our website, thelacrossecollective.com. Stay tuned for more episodes.